Good morning, March the 17th, 2023. I'm reading from Hope's Kiss, chapter 51. When all the opening courtroom routines were accomplished, the DA, Delbert Mansfield, stood and announced, "Today the evidence will show that this organization is in fact plotting to take over the world." Huffs and gasps were heard from the jury members. He looked at the woman who was tending the PowerPoint system this morning and nodded. He displayed the clip. "We have to bring the whole world to follow the global decisions. But first, let's start by getting closer. Let's imagine there is no South America with its dictators, no Eastern rulers, no USA or Russia, no Europe, no China with its exploding population, but we are all in one global integral country." He added, "Obviously, Canada must be a partner in this scheme. I'd like to call MJ Hope to the stand." MJ rose slowly and made her way to the box and carefully lowered herself into the chair. She'd already clicked on the area of the site that the DA was referring to and pointed her lawyer to the true context of this quote. Mansfield approached her confidently and inquired, "So, what do you have to say on behalf of your beloved group on this account? Do you deny they wish to take over the world and make it into one state?" She considered this and then answered, "No and yes." Some of the jurors looked confused and others shook their heads in disbelief at her cockiness in the answer. Mansfield took a couple of seconds and then came back. "No, you don't wish to deny this?" She nodded assent, then went on. "But the one state referred to in this article is a state where the world unites in unity. The RAB gives the example of the concept of an integral analog system, where the entrance and exit are connected through the whole system, and all of its parts are completely interconnected like cogwheels in a closed mechanism. He says that as humanity develops, a bond between us is becoming more and more rigid. In the past, we were able to slip through the holes in some way and attach our little wheels to one another only slightly, but today we are moving into a state where every person is necessarily spinning in a rigid clutch with others. This means whatever direction the species heads, the whole of humanity is destined to. Thus, this connection between us determines whether humanity will move in a favorable or unfavorable direction. So, if we map out our lives less according to our egotism or rigid selfishness, and in a more integrated or altruistic manner, we will reach a common, mutual decision, not colonialism, conclusion. That is, it is necessary to create a joint system of governance, a world government that will unite all of our operations into a single system. That way, we would achieve greater understanding of this integral system and would prevent many environmental, health, and economic catastrophes. It's the most sensible thing we can do. Cavemen survived by creating clans where communities supported each other. We need to grow into a clan of Earthlings. The judge shifted in his seat and sniffed several times before scratching his chin. The DA responded with, "Come on, you don't actually believe that fairy tale, do you?" MJ nodded and smiled pleasantly. There were snickers from the jury. The judge dropped the hammer and called for quiet. The jurors silenced and appeared suitably chastised. The DA nodded to the woman on the computer to show the next excerpt. Bala Hassalam wrote that if we integrate Kabbalah into our day-to-day lives, we will complete the goal of our creation. We will be of one language and of one speech, and at one with the Creator, never to part again. The DA followed with, "So you claim that they're not planning on taking over? What about this? It appears that all will be forced to speak Hebrew and worship their religion. This certainly appears as coerced assimilation. But you say it's not colonialization, huh?" He stepped back and let these words sink in. MJ sat there a moment, then replied, "Have you ever heard of a metaphor, Mr. Mansfield? This is a metaphor for mutual integrity." "And what, pray tell, is mutual integrity a metaphor for?" "Oh my, you have a law degree and I need to explain those words to you. What this symbolizes is the spirit of just about every religious tradition on the globe. Love your neighbor as yourself. Is that simple enough? We will all speak the language of taking care of each other rather than the screaming, self interested, screw others before they screw you insanity that's going on now. He charged back with, "What about freedom of religion?" She countered with, "Yeah, what about freedom of religion? Kabbalah is not a religion, it's a science." He walked back to the table and checked his notes. Apparently, he was not expecting this. He spent several moments shuffling through papers and sighed and then walked back towards the witness box. Calmly, he asked, "What makes you say this?" MJ looked up at him with a bit of a smirk and began, "Well, I'm not a scientist by any means, but I've seen professors of quantum physics engage with the Rav and validate this. So far, string theory backs up what the Kabbalists say about how we were one creature that was suddenly shattered into many forms, still, vegetative, animal, and speaking. The quantum physics acknowledges the wisdom's description of multiple dimensions outside this reality as correct." This time, the defense lawyer nodded to a visual aid person as he introduced the next quote as being from the show called Science and Spirituality on Supreme Master Television. The jurors were invited to read the next quote in the transcript. In March 2005, a unique scientific conference entitled Quantum Physics Meets Kabbalah took place in San Francisco, California, USA, with Kabbalist Rev. Michael Lightman and American quantum physicist William Tiller, Jeffrey Santanover, and Fred Allen Wolf in attendance. The defense added, "These guys have some heavy credentials as scientists." And the credentials of each of these scientists and Dr. Lightman were read to the courtroom. And then they went to the quote. They showed this quote. "It all started when we saw the film What the Bleep Do We Know? We are members of the World Academy of Kabbalah. We are members of the World Academy of Kabbalah, headed by Rav Michael Lightman. Having seen the film, we were surprised at how close modern science has come to confirming the Kabbalistic view of the universe. Scientists specializing in quantum physics have discovered on their own the depth of matter described by Kabbalists more than 3,000 years ago, and we decided to go meet with them. Our next speaker is Dr. Wolf." And then Dr. Wolf approached the podium. No one had anticipated what was about to unfold. He didn't say a word about his own science. This is what he said. "I really don't know what I'm going to say to you. You know, I had been studying physics and I knew something about that technology, but Kabbalah was a science, was something that never would have even dawned on me. I don't care what you're doing. There's something about this field of a way of thinking, of seeing, which can improve anything. And I don't care if you're a Jew, a Muslim, a Gentile. I don't care what you are. I don't care what nationality. I don't care what religion you belong to. There's something in this that will, I think, awaken something in you." End of quote. The defense attorney figured everyone in the courtroom had had enough time to read this and asked, "Was that scientific enough for you?" The DA returned to his seat and mumbled, "No more questions." MJ got up stiffly and returned to the defense table where she rewarded Mark Bridges with another of those rare smiles. To her relief, the judge recessed the court until 2 o'clock. Once more, she followed Mark to the tiny room in the basement. But today, when they finally sat at a small round table, he asked her what she wanted for lunch. They ordered donaires and falafel and 2 cartons of chocolate milk. After he closed his phone, he said, "I think we did fairly well out there. The scientists were pretty heavy hitters." They quietly consumed their lunch. MJ only wanted it to be all over. She missed Carrie severely. She missed her bed and her cat. She missed her computer and her pot. The good news was that she had no physical withdrawal from it, but the bad news was that she was in serious pain in her shoulders, neck, and upper arms. The only way to shed that was through several days of relaxing and smoking about 2/3 of a skinny joint over the course of a day. She knew, that, of course, the treatment needed because she had been managing her fibromyalgia pain through this course for many years. She watched the clock on the wall slow progress. She drummed her fingers on the table while she finished her milk. 1:30 finally arrived. Her lawyer continued to pore over his files while he ate his falafel. 1:45, she pointed to the clock. He gathered up the garbage and stowed it in the little can beside the door and closed his laptop and led the way upstairs. MJ followed quietly. The afternoon held the contrast of vast relief of no more questions because the DA was finished with the remaining sword of the decision of the jury hanging over her head for who knew how long. She would be returned to the institution for holding until the jury came to a decision. That's the end of chapter 51. End.